The ship landed on the crystal world of Valara Prime just as the three suns began to set. Sergeant Taiho stood at the viewport and watched the palace rise from the ground like a mountain made of glass. Light moved through its walls and towers, creating rainbows that danced across the landing platform. He had never seen anything so beautiful in his 28 years of life. A voice behind him said, "First time seeing the throne world?" Taiho turned to find an older officer checking a data pad. The man did not look up. "Yes, sir," Taiho replied. "Enjoy the view while you can. Once you're inside, you'll be too busy trying not to embarrass humanity to notice the pretty lights." The words carried a warning that Taiho understood well. Humans had only joined the Galactic Accord 7 years ago. Most alien species still looked at them the way a person might look at a clever animal. Interesting, perhaps. Useful in certain situations. But certainly not equal. When Taiho walked down the ramp and stepped onto Valari soil, he felt the weight of 1 billion eyes upon him. Not literally, of course. But he knew that his every action here would be reported, analyzed, and judged. He was not just Taiho anymore. He was humanity's representative in the royal guard of Queen Yura. The palace guards, who met him at the platform, were not human. They were breaking massive creatures, standing nearly 3 meters tall, with skin like gray stone and 4 arms that could crush metal. Their leader, a scarred veteran named Vorin, looked down at Taiho with eyes that held no warmth. "You are the human," Vorin said. It was not a question. "Sergeant Taiho, reporting for duty." Vorin made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Duty, yes. Follow me, human. Try to keep up." The Braken turned and walked toward the palace at a pace that forced Taiho to jog. This was a test, he realized. The first of many. They wanted to see him struggle. They wanted to see him fail. Taiho did not complain. He simply ran. Inside the palace, the beauty only grew more intense. The walls were alive with light that shifted and changed like living things. Servants of a dozen different species moved through the corridors, each one pausing to stare at the small human trying to keep pace with the giant Braken captain. Vorin led him through a maze of hallways, till they reached a large room filled with other guards. Taiho saw species he recognized from his training, the swift Netheri, with their silver skin and 4 eyes. The telepathic Asai who floated rather than walked. And more Braken warriors standing like statues along the walls. There were others too, species he had never seen before, each one more impressive than the last. And then there was him. One human. Small. Soft, fragile. "This is the new addition to our order," Vorin announced. "The human Taiho. He will take the outer rotation." A Netheri guard made a clicking sound with his tongue. Outer rotation? Why not simply post a training dummy? It would serve the same purpose. Laughter filled the room. Taiho kept his face calm. "The outer rotation is important," Vorin said, though his tone suggested he did not believe his own words. "Every post matters in the protection of our queen." "Course, Captain," the Netheri replied. "I am sure the human will perform his duties admirably. For however long his species tends to live." More laughter. Taiho remained silent. Vorin dismissed the guards and led Taiho to a small room near the outer edge of the palace. It was simple and plain, nothing like the grand chambers he had glimpsed during his walk through the corridors. A bed, a desk, a small window that looked out at the palace gardens. "Your quarters," Vorin said. "Your shift begins at dawn. Do not be late. I won't be." The Braken paused at the door. "Human, I want you to understand something. You are here because politicians demanded it. Your presence is a symbol, nothing more. No one expects you to actually protect anything. Stay at your post. Stay quiet. Stay out of the way. Do these things, and your time here will be tolerable." Taiho met the captain's eyes without flinching. "I understand, sir." Vorin nodded and left. Alone in his room, Taiho sat on the edge of his bed and let out a long breath. He had known this would be hard. He had prepared himself for the insults, the mockery, the dismissal. But knowing something and experiencing it were different things. He thought about his home on Mars 7, a small mining colony where humans had carved a life out of the red rocks. He thought about his sister Nari, now grown and working as an engineer on one of the orbital stations. He thought about the night the raiders came. He was 16 and scared, and everyone with power had run away or hidden. Nari had been trapped in a collapsed shelter. The adults said it was too dangerous to dig her out. They said rescue teams would come eventually. They said she would be fine. Taiho had not listened. He had dug through the rubble with his bare hands for 6 hours. When the rescue teams finally arrived, they found him still digging, his fingers bloody and broken, his voice gone from screaming his sister's name. She survived. His hands healed. The scars remained. That night had taught him something important. It taught him that when everyone else gives up, someone has to keep going. It taught him that courage is not the absence of fear, is the decision that something matters more than fear. He would not give up here either. The next morning, Taiho arrived at his post 1 hour before his shift began. He stood in the outer corridor and studied every detail of the placement of the doors. The patterns of servant movement, the angles of vision from each window. He noted which guards passed by and when. He memorized the sounds of the palace waking up. Days turned into weeks. Taiho maintained his routine. He arrived early. He stayed late. He trained in the practice halls when they were empty, pushing his body to its limits and beyond. The other guards continued to mock him, but he noticed something changing in their eyes. Not respect, not yet, but curiosity. The human was still here. The human had not quit. The human worked harder than anyone else. One evening, as Taiho stood at his post watching the twin moons rise over the gardens, he felt a presence behind him. He turned and dropped to one knee immediately. Queen Yura stood before him. She was tall and graceful. Her body made of something between flesh and light. Her skin glowed with soft luminescence that shifted through colors like oil on water. Her eyes were ancient and deep, holding thousands of years of memory and wisdom. "Rise, human," she said. Her voice was like music. Taiho stood, keeping his gaze respectful. "You are the one who arrives early and leaves late," the queen said. "I have watched you, Your Majesty." She raised a hand, silencing him. "I have lived for 3,000 years. I have seen many guards come and go. The brave ones often prove to be fools. The strong ones often prove to be cowards. But the dedicated ones, the ones who care about their duty more than their comfort, those are rare." She studied him for a long moment. "Do you know why I agreed to have a human in my guard, Sergeant Taiho?" "No, Your Majesty." "Because I wanted to see what a species that lives only 100 years considers worth dying for." She tilted her head slightly. "I am beginning to understand." She turned and walked away, her glowing form disappearing around a corner. Taiho stood at his post until his shift ended, thinking about her words. In the darkness of the outer corridor, far from the throne room and the important people, he made a silent promise. He would show them all what a human could do. 2 months passed on Valara Prime. The 3 suns rose and set in there. Endless dance. And Taiho learned the rhythms of the palace like a musician learns a song. He knew which servants worked which corridors. He knew the footsteps of each guard by sound alone. He knew the way light moved through the crystal walls at different hours of the day. The other guards still ignored him. But the insults had grown less frequent. They had realized something that surprised them: the human was not going to break. He was not going to complain, or give up, or ask to go home. He simply kept working, day after day. With a quiet determination that made them uncomfortable, it was during his 3rd month that Taiho met Minji. She was a diplomatic attaché assigned to the human embassy within the palace complex. Her job was to manage relationships between Earth and the Valari Empire, which mostly meant attending boring meetings and smiling at aliens who looked down on her. Taiho found her sitting alone in the palace gardens one evening, watching the flowers that bloomed only under moonlight. She looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with lack of sleep. "Mind if I join you?" he asked. She looked up and smiled when she saw his uniform. Another human. "Thank God. Please, sit." He sat beside her on the stone bench. For a while, neither of them spoke. The silence was comfortable, the kind that exists between people who understand each other without words. "They treat you like furniture too?" Minji finally asked. "Something like that," I've been here for 2 years, she said. 2 years of being patted on the head and told that my species shows great promise, like we're children learning to walk. She shook her head. Sometimes I wonder why I bother. 'Cause someone has to, Taiho said. Minji looked at him with new interest. That's either very wise or very stupid. I can't decide which. Probably both. She laughed a real laugh, not the polite sound she made in diplomatic meetings. They talked for hours that night, sharing stories about their homes, their families, their dreams. Taiho told her about Mar7 and his sister. Nari Minji told him about her parents in Seoul and how proud they had been when she received the diplomatic posting. They thought I was going to represent humanity to the stars, she said. Instead, I spend most of my time being ignored by aliens who think we're barely more than clever monkeys. Give it time, Taiho said. Time is exactly what we don't have. The Valari live for thousands of years. To them, our entire civilization is a brief flicker. By the time they start taking us seriously, everyone we know will be dead. She paused. Including us. It was a truth that Taiho had considered many times. Humans were mayflies in a galaxy of ancient species. Their lives were short, their history was brief, and their technology was primitive compared to civilizations that had been building starships while humans were still living in caves. But Taiho did not see this as a weakness. Do you know what happens when you only have a short time? He asked. You learn to make every moment count. You learn to fight harder, love deeper, and never waste a single day. The Valari have all the time in the universe so they can afford to move slowly. We can't. It's not a weakness, it's a fire that keeps us moving forward. Minji studied his face in the moonlight. You really believe that, don't you? I have to. Their friendship grew over the following weeks. Minji would visit Taiho at his post when her schedule allowed, bringing him small treats from the embassy kitchen and news from Earth. In return, he told her about the patterns he had noticed in the palace, the strange behavior of certain servants, the unusual meetings that happened in shadowed corners, the guards who seemed nervous for no reason. You're paranoid, she told him once. I'm careful. There's a difference. What Taiho did not know was that his paranoia was justified. Deep within the palace, in chambers that had not seen light for centuries, a conspiracy was taking shape. Lord Tyvan, cousin to Queen Yura, sat across from a holographic figure that flickered with encrypted static. The figure belonged to the Syndicate of Ash, the most feared mercenary organization in the known galaxy. The Festival of Twin Moons is in 3 weeks, Tyvan said. The throne room will be packed with dignitaries. Security will be focused on the crowds. It is the perfect opportunity. Our Cathari operatives are already in position, the figure replied. They have infiltrated the servant staff and mapped every security checkpoint. When the lights go out, your problem will be solved. And the guards? The Shirai order is impressive, but they have weaknesses. The break-in cannot see in complete darkness without their thermal vision. Our pulse grenades will blind them. The Asai telepaths will be neutralized by psychic disruptors. The Netheri are fast, but they will not fight when they cannot see their enemy. Your guards will retreat. They always do. Tyvan nodded slowly. And what of the human? The figure made a dismissive sound. What of him? He's a single, fragile creature stationed at the outer edge of the palace. By the time he realizes anything is happening, the queen will already be dead. Good. I want this done cleanly. Yura's reforms threaten everything our noble houses have built over millennia. She speaks of equality and change while trampling on traditions that have stood for 10,000 years. For the right price. We can eliminate tradition's enemies very efficiently. The hologram flickered and died. Lord Tyvan sat alone in the darkness, dreaming of the throne that would soon be his. Back in the moonlit garden, Taiho said goodbye to Minji and returned to his quarters. He could not shake the feeling that something was wrong. He had noticed small things over the past few days, new servants with unfamiliar faces, shipments arriving at unusual hours, guards who avoided eye contact when he passed. He tried to report his concerns to Captain Vorin. The Bracken listened with obvious impatience. You think there is a conspiracy because some servants seem nervous? Vorin asked. Human paranoia. Your species sees threats everywhere because your lives are so short that death always feels close. Captain, I'm simply asking that we increase security for the festival. The festival security is already planned by officers far more experienced than you. Return to your post, human. Do your job and leave the thinking to those who are qualified. Tai-Ho wanted to argue, but he knew it would be useless. He had no evidence, only instinct. And in a palace full of ancient aliens who measured wisdom in centuries, the instincts of a 20-year-old human meant nothing. He returned to his post and watched the palace go about its business. The festival of twin moons was approaching, and the corridors buzzed with excitement. Decorators hung lights and banners. Musicians practiced in the grand halls. Cooks prepared feasts that would feed thousands, and somewhere in the shadows, assassins waited. Tai-Ho could feel it coming, a storm gathering beyond the horizon. He did not know when it would strike or how bad it would be. But he knew one thing, with absolute certainty. When the storm arrived, he would not run. The night before the festival, Tai-Ho visited Mingi one last time. She noticed something different in his eyes, a weight that had not been there before. "What's wrong?" she asked. "Probably nothing," he said. "But if something happens tomorrow, if things go bad, I want you to get to the embassy and seal the doors. Don't come looking for me, Tai-Ho. You're scaring me." He smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. "I'm probably just being paranoid. Forget I said anything." But Minji did not forget. And as the twin moons rose over the palace that night, both of them wondered what the dawn would bring. The festival of twin moons arrived with all the beauty and chaos that Tai-Ho had expected. The palace transformed into an ocean of light and sound. Thousands of guests filled the corridors, dressed in clothes that shimmered with colors that human eyes could barely process. Music floated through the air from instruments that had been playing the same melodies for 10,000 years. Tai-Ho stood at his assigned post an outer doorway far from the throne room where the real celebration was happening. He could hear the distant sounds of laughter and conversation. The clink of glasses, the soft hum of 1,000 voices mixing together. It was beautiful, and he could not enjoy any of it. His eyes moved constantly, watching the crowds that passed by. Servants carrying trays, guests wandering the corridors, guards patrolling in pairs. Everything seemed normal. Everything seemed safe. But Tai-Ho had learned long ago that danger hides best in normal moments. He noticed the servant first, a thin figure carrying an empty tray toward the kitchens. Nothing unusual about that, except this servant walked with a balance that seemed too perfect, too controlled. Servants hurried and stumbled and dropped things. This one moved like a predator pretending to be prey. Tai-Ho watched the figure disappear around a corner. His instincts screamed at him to follow, but he could not abandon his post. Not without proof. Not without orders. He activated his communication device. "Captain Vorin, this is Sergeant Tai-Ho, requesting permission to investigate suspicious activity in Corridor 7. "Attic!" Then Vorin's annoyed voice. "There is no suspicious activity, human. Stay at your post and stop wasting my time." The connection closed. Tai-Ho stood in the silence of the outer corridor, alone with his doubts. Maybe he was wrong. Maybe his paranoia had finally gotten the better of him. Maybe the lights went out. Not just the lights in his corridor. Every light in the palace died at the same instant. The crystal walls that had glowed with inner fire went dark. The music stopped. The laughter stopped. For one terrible moment, the entire palace held its breath. Then the screaming began. Tai-Ho heard plasma fire from the direction of the throne, the sharp crack of weapons, designed to kill quickly and efficiently. He heard the deep roar of breaking guards engaging enemies they could not see. He heard the high-pitched wailing of a sigh. Telepaths as something attacked their minds. He drew his weapon and ran toward the chaos. The darkness was absolute. Even the emergency lights had been disabled. Tai-Ho moved by memory alone, counting steps and turns, keeping one hand on the wall to guide himself. He passed other guards running in the opposite direction, away from the throne room, away from the queen, away from danger. What's happening? He shouted at a Nethri guard who crashed into him. Dari. Assassins. The Nethri replied, terror making his voice high and thin. Dozens of them. They're killing everyone. We can't see. We can't fight. The captain called retreat. The Nethri pushed past him and vanished into the darkness. Retreat. The word echoed in Taiho's mind. The mighty Shirai Order, the greatest guards in the galaxy, were running away. They were abandoning their queen to die in the dark. Taiho kept moving forward. The throne room was a nightmare when he finally reached it. Bodies lay scattered across the floor, guests, servants, guards. The air smelled of burned flesh and blood. In the darkness, he could hear the assassins moving, their footsteps light and quick, their blades singing through the air. The Cathari were perfect killers. Their species had been engineered for assassination over thousands of generations. They could see in complete darkness. They could move without making sound. They could kill a target and disappear before anyone knew they were there. Against such enemies, what could one human do? Taiho did not think about the answer. He simply moved. His training on Mars 7 had included combat in zero visibility. The mining tunnels were often dark, and power failures were common. He had learned to fight by sound and touch, to sense enemy positions through the movement of air, to trust his instincts when his eyes failed him. He found the first assassin by following the sound of breathing. The Cathari did not expect resistance. It was too busy approaching the throne, where a faint glow revealed Queen Yora's wounded form trying to crawl away. The assassin never saw the human coming. Taiho's blade found its throat in the darkness, and it died without making a sound. But there were more. Many more. Taiho pushed through the chaos toward the queen. A second assassin came at him from the left, heard the whisper of its blade cutting through air and twisted aside just in time. The weapon grazed his shoulder, cutting through armor and flesh. Pain flared hot and bright, but he ignored it. He grabbed the assassin's arm and used its own momentum to throw it off balance. His blade found its heart. 2 down. How many more? Who is there? Queen Yura's voice came from the darkness ahead. It was weak, strained with pain. Who fights? Your Majesty, stay down. I'm coming to you, the human. Surprise colored her voice. The human guard. Taiho reached her position and dropped to one knee beside her. She was hurt. A blade had caught her side, and her luminescence flickered like a dying candle. But she was alive. Still alive? I need to move you, he said. Can you walk? I can try. He helped her to her feet, keeping his body between her and the darkness. They needed to reach the safe room, a reinforced chamber beneath the throne room designed for exactly this situation. If he could get her there, she might survive long enough for help to arrive. They made it 3 steps before the third assassin appeared. This one was bigger than the others. Faster, too. Taiho heard it coming and pushed the queen behind him, raising his blade to meet the attack. The assassin's weapon crashed against his with force that nearly broke his arm. They struggled in the darkness, neither able to see the other, fighting by touch and instinct alone. The assassin was stronger. It forced Taiho back step by step until he felt the wall against his back. Its blade pressed toward his throat. Little human, the assassin hissed. Why do you fight? Your queen is dead either way. Your species is nothing. You are nothing, maybe Taiho replied. But I'm still here. He dropped his weight suddenly, letting the assassin's blade scrape along the wall above his head. In the same motion, he drove his own blade upward into the assassin's chest. The creature made a gurgling sound and collapsed. Taiho pulled his weapon free and returned to the queen. His shoulder was bleeding badly now, and he could feel other wounds he did not remember receiving. Pain was starting to break through the walls of adrenaline that had been protecting him. The safe room, he said. We need to go now. But as he helped the queen forward, he heard more footsteps approaching. More assassins, drawn by the sounds of fighting. Too many to fight. Too many to survive. Queen Yura heard them too. Leave me, she said. Save yourself. You have done enough. Taiho tightened his grip on his weapon. No, he said simply. I don't retreat. The footsteps grew closer. In the darkness, Taiho prepared to make his final stand. The footsteps surrounded them now. Taiho counted at least 4 assassins moving in the darkness, circling like predators around wounded prey. They were taking their time. They knew their targets could not escape. Human, one of them called out. "You have surprised us. We did not expect anyone to stay." Taiho said nothing. He adjusted his grip on his blade and kept his body between the queen and the approaching sounds.
Ow.
"Stand aside," the voice continued. "Our contract is with the queen, not with you. Walk away now, and you can live. Keep fighting, and you will die for nothing." Behind him, Queen Yura whispered, "Take the offer, please. Your life matters." But Taiho was not listening. He was remembering he was 16 years old again. Standing in front of a collapsed shelter on Mar 7, the adults were telling him to give up. They were telling him that his sister was probably already dead. They were telling him that digging through rubble with his bare hands was pointless. Foolish, a waste of effort. He had not listened then. He would not listen now. "You want the queen?" he said into the darkness. "Come and take her." The first assassin attacked from his right. Taiho heard the rush of air and moved without thinking, his blade meeting the enemy's weapon in a shower of sparks. The brief flash of light revealed a face that was not quite human, too long, too angular, with eyes that reflected like a cat's. Then the darkness returned, and they fought blind. Taiho, one advantage the assassins did not expect. He was willing to trade wounds for kills. When the second assassin came at him from the left, he did not try to block perfectly. He let the blade cut his arm so that he could get inside the assassin's guard. His own weapon found the creature's throat. Pain screamed through his body. He ignored it. The third assassin was smarter. It hung back, waiting for its companion to tire the human out. Taiho could hear it circling, looking for an opening. He kept moving, kept turning, never letting any enemy get behind him and the queen. "You are wounded," the circling assassin observed. "Bleeding, weakening. How long can you keep this up, human? A minute, 2? We have all night? Then stop talking and find out." The fourth assassin came at him fast and low. Taiho felt the blade punch into his side, slipping between his ribs with surgical precision. The pain was incredibly, a white-hot fire that made his vision blur even in the darkness. He grabbed the assassin's arm before it could pull back for another strike and held on. The creature struggled. It was stronger than him, faster than him, better in every way that could be measured. But Taiho would not let go. "What are you doing?" the assassin hissed, trying to pull free. "Release me." "No." Taiho pulled the creature closer, wrapping his arms around it, using his body weight to drag it down. The blade was still in his side, grinding against bone with every movement. He could feel his blood pouring out onto the cold floor. He could feel his strength failing, but he would not let go. The third assassin saw its chance. It rushed forward, blade raised for a killing blow. Queen Yura screamed a warning. Taiho could not move, could not defend himself, could do nothing except hold on to the creature in his arms. The blade came down, and then light exploded through the throne room. The palace emergency systems finally came back online. The crystal walls blazed with sudden brightness that blinded the assassins who had spent the past hour in complete darkness. They stumbled and shielded their eyes.
Oh.
Suddenly vulnerable, Captain Vorin charged through the door at the head of a dozen break-in warriors. They had regrouped. They had overcome their fear. They had come back. But they came back to a scene that stopped them in their tracks. The human guard, the small, fragile, insignificant humans, stood in the center of the throne room surrounded by dead assassins. His uniform was soaked with blood. His blade was broken. His body was covered with wounds that should have killed any normal creature twice over. And he was still standing. The third assassin tried to run. Vorin caught it with a blow that cracked stone walls. The fourth assassin, the one in Taiho's arms, tried to break free now that light had returned. Taiho looked down at it with eyes that held no mercy. "I told you," he said. "I don't retreat." He tightened his grip. The assassin's neck snapped with a sound like breaking branches. Then Taiho's legs gave out. He collapsed beside the queen. He could hear voices shouting, could feel hands grabbing him, trying to stop the bleeding. Someone was calling for medical support. Someone else was crying. Queen Yura's face appeared above him, glowing with soft light that hurt his eyes. There were tears on her cheeks, something that should have been impossible, something that Valari had not done in thousands of years. "You stayed," she said. "Everyone ran and you stayed," had to Taiho managed to say. "Made a promise?" "What promise?" "To whom?" "To myself." "A long time ago?" The gray at the edges of his vision was spreading. The pain was fading, which he knew was a bad sign. He thought about Mars 7. He thought about Nari. He thought about all the times. He had refused to give up when giving up would have been easier. "Human," the Queen said, her voice breaking. "Taiho, stay with me. Help is coming. Stay with me." "Trying," he whispered. "Hard to. Do not leave me. That is a royal command. Do you understand? You are forbidden to die." Somewhere far away, Taiho thought he heard laughter. It might have been his own. "Can't disobey." "The Queen," he said. The medical teams arrived. Taiho felt himself being lifted, carried, moved through corridors that blurred like watercolors in rain. Voices spoke in languages he did not understand. Machines beeped in word. Someone was doing something to his chest that should have hurt but through it all, Queen Yura never left his side. She held his hand, her fingers warm and soft against his cold, bloody palm, and refused to let go. "You asked me once why I agreed to have a human in my guard," she said. "Do you remember?" Taiho could not speak anymore. He could barely hear her. "I said I wanted to see what a short-lived species considers worth dying for." Her voice cracked. "Now I know. You consider everything worth dying for. Every person. Every principle. Every promise. You burn so brightly because you know your flames will not last." She leaned close to his ear. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for staying." Taiho's eyes closed. The darkness returned, but this time it was soft and warm, like a blanket wrapped around his soul. He drifted in it, floating between worlds, uncertain which direction led to life and which to death. In the end, he chose the same way he always chose. He kept fighting. He kept holding on. He refused to let go, and somewhere in that darkness, he found his way back to the light. Taiho woke to the sound of water falling over crystal. He opened his eyes slowly, blinking against soft light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. The ceiling above him was made of something that looked like frozen starlight. He was alive. That surprised him more than anything else. "Welcome back, Sergeant." The voice belonged to Queen Yura. She sat beside his bed in a chair that looked like it cost more than a starship. Her luminescence had returned to full strength, casting gentle shadows across the walls of what he now realized was a private medical chamber. "How long?" Taiho asked. His voice came out as a croak. 3 weeks. "Your wounds were significant. The physicians said you should have died 7 times over. They had to rebuild most of your internal organs." Taiho tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain lanced through his body, though it was distant somehow, dulled by whatever medications were flowing through his veins. "Don't move," the Queen said gently. "You have months of recovery ahead of you. There is no need to rush," settled back against the pillows and studied her face. She looked different than he remembered, less distant, more real. Like someone had peeled away a mask she had been wearing for centuries. "The assassins?" he asked. "Dead or captured? The Syndicate of Ash has been destroyed. The remaining members are scattered across the galaxy, running from hunters we have sent after them, and Lord Tyvin." The Queen's expression hardened. "My cousin is currently enjoying the hospitality of our deepest dungeon. His trial begins next month. The evidence against him is overwhelming." She paused. "He will not trouble us again." Taiho nodded slowly, processing the information. The conspiracy had been exposed. The Queen was safe. The bad guys had lost. Captain Vorin. He asked. He resigned his position the morning after the attack. He could not live with the shame of ordering his guards to retreat, while a single human stayed to fight. She tilted her head. "He asked me to tell you that he was wrong about you. About all humans. He came back in the end." Yes, but by then, you had already killed 4 Cathari assassins by yourself and were holding a 5th in a death grip. A small smile crossed her lips. The reports of that night have spread across the galaxy. The human who would not retreat? The guard who held the line alone? Taiho felt uncomfortable with the attention. He had not fought for glory or recognition. He had fought because fighting was the right thing to do. I was just doing my job, he said. No, the queen shook her head firmly. You were doing far more than that, and the galaxy knows it. She stood and moved to the window, looking out at the palace gardens below. The twin moons were rising, casting silver light across flowers that only bloomed at night. I have ruled for 3,000 years, she said. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched species evolve and go extinct. I thought I understood what made civilizations great: technology, power, knowledge, time. I was wrong. Taiho waited for her to continue. What makes a civilization great is not how long it lasts, but how brightly it burns. Your species has existed for such a brief moment in cosmic terms. You are young and fragile and mortal, but in that mortality, you have found something that ancient species like mine have lost. What's that? Purpose. Urgency. The understanding that every moment matters, because moments are all you have. She returned to her chair and took his hand. You taught me something that night, Taiho. You taught me that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision that something matters more than fear. I had forgotten that. My people had forgotten that. Taiho did not know what to say, so he said nothing. The queen smiled. I am dissolving the Shirai order and reforming it from the ground up. New traditions. New values. New leadership. She squeezed his hand. I want you to lead it. Me. Taiho's surprise cut through the fog of medication. Your Majesty, I'm just a sergeant. I'm human. You are the only guard who did not abandon me. You are the only one who stayed. That makes you more qualified than anyone else in the galaxy. She released his hand and stood. Think about it. You have time. I will return tomorrow. She walked to the door, then paused and looked back. One more thing. I have received hundreds of requests from humans wishing to serve in the Royal Guard. It seems your example has inspired your people. Whatever you decide about the leadership position, I would like you to consider taking charge of their training. She left before he could respond. Taiho lay in the silence of the medical chamber, staring at the starlight ceiling. A few months ago, he had been a Nobadia, token human, given a meaningless post to satisfy political demands. Now the queen of the Valari Empire was asking him to reshape her entire guard force. The door opened again. Mingi walked in carrying a small package. You're awake, she said, relief flooding her voice. I've been visiting every day, but you were always unconscious. I tend to oversleep after getting stabbed multiple times. She laughed and sat in the chair the queen had just left. I brought you something. From Earth. She handed him the package. Inside was a small metal badge, symbol of the Marzazevan Colonial Defense Force. His old unit. His old life. How did you get this? I have connections. Your sister Nari sent it. She wanted you to have something from home, Minji smiled. She also said, and I quote, tell my idiot brother to stop trying to die. I didn't survive that collapsed shelter just to watch him get himself killed fighting aliens. Taiho laughed. And even though it hurt his healing wounds, he didn't care. The badge felt cool and familiar in his palm, a reminder of where he had come from and why he fought. The queen offered me command of the new guard, he said. I heard. Are you going to accept? He thought about it for a long moment. Leading the guard would mean responsibility, pressure, politics. It would mean becoming something more than a soldier. It would mean stepping onto a stage that the entire galaxy was watching. He said finally. But only if she lets me recruit humans. Lots of them, Minji raised an eyebrow. You want to fill the Valari Royal Guard with humans? Not fill, but represent. The galaxy needs to see what we can do. Not because we're stronger or faster or smarter than other species, but because we don't give up, we don't retreat. We keep fighting until the very end. That's either very inspiring or very crazy. Probably both. She laughed again. You know, that's what I like about you. You're absolutely insane, but somehow it works out. Taiho looked at the badge in his hand, then at the window where the twin moons hung in the sky. Somewhere out there, humans were watching the stars and dreaming of their place among them. Somewhere out there, a little girl was learning that courage meant standing up when everyone else was running away. The galaxy had underestimated humanity for 7 years. They had called them fragile, primitive, short-lived, insignificant. They would not make that mistake. Again, Taiho closed his fingers around the badge and made a silent promise to himself. To his species, to every human who would come after him, they would prove themselves worthy of the stars. Not by conquering or dominating or living forever, but by standing firm when the darkness came. By holding the line when everyone else retreated, by burning so brightly that even the ancient races could not look away. That was the human way. And Taiho would make sure the galaxy never forgot it.